bluntly were just better in game 1. RNG were snowballed against, and they struggled to execute on their team fights. So we're going to have ourselves a change in side, so RNG now on red side. And we'll see whether the drafts change up as well. Volley Bear banned away by anyone's legend, interestingly. They don't want to first pick it, and they will not be able to play it again themselves, because they played it last game, but they're banning it themselves now.
Yeah, don't feel like they'd have the option. It does allow them to go for the Karma first pick. Smolder's still up, but bluntly, from the way RNG played around it, and the fact that they were getting snowballed on so hard, I can understand why they feel kind of okay to leave that champion out in the draft and say, look, you just aren't going to do enough with this champion. You're never going to get to a point where this is going to be a real threat. LWX had 1 or 2 team fights where the stacks came online and he did some work. So maybe they decide they'll go towards it again. I don't think it was LWX's individual play that cost them that game. It was a much broader set of issues than just that, I think. And LWX has necessarily been lighting people on fire this year. Ironic, I know, considering he's playing the Flaming Dragon, but still, maybe another look at this one. The champion does feel very strong. If RNG can turf a little more, might be a different look. The Jax early would be fun, but we'll wait and see. Still looking for a champion. Nautilus, of course, very popular, even if we had our issues with how Ming decided to pilot it, and they decided instead to go towards the Ari.
Yeah, you see that Nautilus there and just thinking, oh god, do I want to go through it again? Instead, it's going to be Tanuen's Ari in that mid lane, so it's something a little bit earlier spiking again. Not that the Nico wasn't from the first game. Again, the problem from game 1 is that you look at RNG's champions and say, yes, that's a coherent draft, they can fight, that's fine. You got to play it well, though. Now, something like that Ari, it can be a bit more forgiving than Nico, because you can dash into a fight and then dash out. It's harder to pick you off in different moments as well. Hope, though, I mean, he is one of the best Zeri players in the LPL. I would say one of the best Zeri players in the world, especially he was back in 2022, and he's continued some of that form through 23 and now into 24 as well. Kyle onto the Rakan as well. You're going to have two pseudo enchanters buffing up the Zeri. The Karma going largely AP, won't have the same kind of Ardent Sensor, shield and heal and buff up value as an enchanter Karma, and the Rakan as well, kind of like the half enchanter as well. But they both do enough to make Zeri a threat.
They do indeed. Ari Vi is a pretty obvious combo. Once again, something you can try that's been used to threaten Zeri over the ages that she has been out. It's really been a couple of years, but there you go. 2 years now, hasn't it been for Zeri? That's a bit of a wild thought.
Yeah.
And now over instead to the second phase of bans we have to go. Both looking at kind of some ED brawlers and fighters. So Shinzao obviously very strong when you've already locked in the Vi. Making Croco's options a little bit more narrow makes sense.
Wouldn't surprise me if we saw something like, well, you might want to see something like a Poppy ban just because it deals quite good. That's what I'm saying. No, you've got like multiple dashes that could be blocked out, and something like the Ari and the Vi, very good at dashing forward if there's nothing to stop those dashes going on to you. Already, you can see that Shanks is going to have a bit of a difficult draft to play through if he's out of position. Even with the move speed of that mantra, the Ari will catch you if you're out of position.
2 of Breeze's more popular champions removed. To see what they're thinking about for support. There's some fun options being hovered, but I doubt we see any of those straight up.
Yeah, you're looking for something that can't get dived, and you're looking for something that can just be a front line. So something like the Alistair has been very popular. We've seen players like Mako and Missing, who are probably the best performing supports in the LPL right now, absolutely tear apart a lot of teams with it. In fact, actually, Life on FPX, of course,
phenomenal
beats JDG with the Alistair the other day as well. So RNG, ample engage, ample ability to roam across the map, with the ability to combo up with the mid jungle and support, but they need to play through the combo. It's hard because in the first game, you could also say they had a combo, they just didn't play it well.
Exactly that. And on the other side, Harry decides, I've got to blind pick something. Udyr is the tankiest option remaining, has nearly guaranteed early shove. Croco hovering a Kindred, but we'll wait and see what they decide towards some fun options again being hovered. I think you do actually have a little bit of opportunity to go for something a little bit more carry focused if you want, because you've got a lot of shove. So the Kindred comes on in, double AD carry, you've got the Karma to back them up and some solid front line in the Udyr. I don't hate it, and honestly, the other thing is you're into a dive comp, and Kindred's pretty good with the ability to press R and to mitigate things like the Vi and the Ari trying to make that pick happen if you're in the right position.
So, you know, a lot of people have complained about the jungle meta, saying, hey, you know, we're just playing Xin Sao and Sejuani, this is so boring. In the LPL, we play the carry junglers still. And I think there have been a couple of players which have popularized that. I think particularly Milky Way is the name which jumps onto everyone's mind at that point. But, you know, every player here in the LPL has started to flex their jungle champion pool just a bit, and that Kindred, against something like the Ahri and the Vi kill combo, can do a very good job of kind of dissuading that initial engage, or at least starting to stop the resets from the Ahri coming through. It's not the easiest thing to play around, because what that also means is that you can get punted out of it by the Alistar as well. Yeah. That's not necessarily great. So really need to see how much value Croco can get out of the Kindred. It's not the easiest Kindred game.
It's not, but I will say you at least have got Karma behind you. You've at least got the Rakan to kind of back you up a little bit as well, in terms of someone to also kind of like come flying around and save you if you need it. And of course the R is really good, particularly into the Ahri and the Vi, even if, as you said, Ming on one of his all-time iconic champions, frankly. The Alistar's a champion he made his name on way back when he was playing with Uzi, and Gala, of course, was really, really scary when he was winning MSI and stuff. It was off and on things like the cow being very, very scary indeed. But they have still got to make it work, and the level of play from RNG has been lackluster, whatever champions they've been playing. Anyone's Legend, slightly different look. They bring back the Zeri, they bring back the Rakan, but this time it's an Enchanter in the mid lane. It's a carry in the jungle, and Croco, at his best, has been very, very good. I think he was someone that, even when he was in the LCK on teams that were a little bit more middle of the pack, shall we say, he was a player that people still had a lot of hope in. He wasn't always perfect, but he felt like the potential was there.
5-man stack coming out of Anyone's Legend, going into the bot side jungle very early. You are against the Alistar, which has a fairly strong level. W from LWS. Yeah, that definitely helps kind of dissuade a little bit. Of course, if another fight happened, that W will be back off cooldown. It's starting the stacking early. It gives you some extra stacks there. As what Anyone's Legend want to do here is just say, okay, Vi cannot fight at level 1. Nope. Vi is one of the worst level 1 junglers in the game. Might even be the worst level 1 jungler in the game as it currently stands, because you don't get to have, you know, your Q, your W, and your E. And with that AL, so to say, okay, we can walk in and fight very early. This is something, again, every time this happens, I shout out Gilius, because Gilius is the person that's really been talking about this on his co-stream as well. Just means that AL get to hold a really dominant level 1. And now Ming, you know, game 1 was on his most played champion of all time in Nautilus. He lost that one pretty disastrously. This is his second most played champion of all time. Not a great start either.
And the thing is, it's not even like he did anything particularly crazy there. He just walked through his own lane at level 1. No, it shouldn't be that crazy.
Yeah, he should have known better.
Oh, you've got to feel bad. The thing is, it is an Ignite for an Ignite trade, but it means Ming's not going to be around for the early wave. And that means Hope and Kyle are guaranteed the shove, guaranteed the level 2 first. And LWX on the Smolder will be kept down somewhat. Vi isn't interrupted on her own invade, and this means there's a split map as well, with a shoving lane and a sort of under-leveled cow, probably. Dives on the board potentially here for Anyone's Legend if they want to get very aggressive with this.
Thing is, it's hard to dive when you just have the Rakan and there's double flashes. You don't have guaranteed lockups. It might just have to be bot side steals. Of course, the thing is, when you're vertical jungling like this, if you can continue this kind of ward pressure, it means that when it comes down to the second clear, there's a chance of a mark spawning in there as well. It doesn't work for the first clear. It's going to be on the one. Yeah, exactly. So I mean, for the first clear, it's going to be on those scuttle crabs, but then, you know, later into your second and third clears, if you can keep this level of bot side pressure, it gives you that, you know, that chance to get yourself a camp on the other side for a mark.
Yeah, so the RNG is weighted, but the basic deal is before 4 marks, Scuttle Crab is pretty much guaranteed to be a mark if the mark hasn't spawned. If there's no Scuttle Crabs available, then it's either Raptors or Gromp as your kind of level ones. And as you kind of get beyond 4 marks, then it moves to things like the buffs, and then higher on again to Wolves, and eventually once you're past 7, it's big neutral objectives.
Basically, it's the harder the camp is to steal from the enemy jungler, the later into the game it will be the mark, because it favors the easy ones. Obviously, Scuttle Crab, it's neutral territory, the easiest one. Then you have Gromp and Raptors, quite easy to get into. Then it's buffs, and the Wolves are obviously hidden right at the back of the map. And then, of course, after that, then it goes on to the big objectives when you're very late into the game as well.
Other thing that's worth pointing out as well is, this is a little bit of tech from Meteos back in the day, of course was a big Kindred play, is one of the things you can do is if the Scuttle Crab spawns on the wrong side of the map from you, so obviously you have that 50-50 chance on the Scuttle Crab being on the right side of the map, and unfortunately, as you see from Croco, it is on the wrong side of the map for him. What you do is you wait. You do not take the second Scuttle Crab, and it'll move over if you leave it 20-30 seconds.
And that's exactly what Croco's doing. He did a full clear, he's gone back, which means that he's not wasting time on the map. He goes back and says, okay, I can get myself a door Doran's Blade, so I have early fighting stats. Very important, of course. It means that you'll have a little bit of extra HP to play around the level 6 mark, which Wei and Tanyuan will be trying to abuse down there as well. Goes back out onto the map, and hopefully by the time he's back into the thick of things, he can get himself onto that bot side scuttle for the first mark of the game.
That's the plan. See whether he times it about right, and I'm also hoping that my tech isn't outdated and this still works. I'm pretty sure it does, but I'm suddenly getting nervous about my own knowledge of the game.
See, again, he's ignoring the scuttle. Yeah. He's ignoring it. So he's saying, okay, I don't care. We'll see where that mark comes up like. Next, he's going to be going straight in towards the second camp, respawns, and is saying, I want to keep myself presence in the bot side of the map. Now, the thing is, on the top side, you'd normally think, oh, but doesn't this leave your top side exposed? You have an Udyr. Udyr is not someone you can dive in the early game. So the mark has now spawned on the scuttle. Croco didn't waste any time by waiting around for that mark. Recalls, go back towards the walls, takes that, goes back towards that scuttle for the first mark of the game. Croco knows his tech.
There you go. Phew, I was proven to know something about League of Legends. I don't have to justify my inadequacies. As Croco comes over and does claim that mark.
Can I just say, so obviously we have no connection with the observers here as well, and these are on the Chinese side of the broadcast as well. It is very, very cool when we're sat here as casters and the observers are telling exactly what they want to say, and we're aligned with that in terms of the scuttle early.
It's always nice.
Well. Sometimes you're sat there like, man, I love when everyone's on the same page. It's kind of fun.
I think especially sometimes when it's things like you're doing fun things instead of normal things. So one of my favorite esports memories is when we're kind of making that really dumb. This was NLC.
Yeah.
When I had my sunglasses and I made a dumb They Move in Herds Jurassic Park reference, and we loaded onto the rift, and production independent from us had made the little duck in the river make a T-Rex noise as we loaded onto the rift. Yeah. It was just phenomenal. Completely out of the blue, completely independent. Jurassic Park references everywhere. It was a good time.
I'm happy, Sam.
Yeah.
Besides that, you see that Tanyuan has already one-upped Shanks in terms of build, in terms of last game. First back Dark Seal. This is exactly what you should be doing on Ahri. When you're in a game like this, where again the top side is Renekton Vi Ahri, you want to be getting as much snowball potential as possible. Particularly when you're against stuff like the Kindred as well. It means that you want to get that burst kind of potential to make sure that if you get far enough ahead, Croco can't pop his ult before the CC is elapsed on him.
Because Ming went to prevent the mark going down on the Gromp, actually I think it was taken, so never mind that, because Croco actually was really smart about leaving the Gromp up a little to let the second mark spawn there. Good microing of that tech again. He gets the second mark. Ming went over to have a look at it. It left the LWX alone in lane, which meant he got engaged and lost a lot of his HP bar. It was a Ghost and an Ignite for just the Ghost of LWX and some lane pressure. But it does mean anyone's Legend continue to try and put pressure down on this bot side. Finally, Wei turns up.
Ooh.
Actually interrupts the battle dance from Kyle, but has a second charge of it, so it doesn't lead to all that much.
Yeah, interrupts the grand entrance. Battle dances out all the same. He won't have either of those cooldowns up right now. The big thing about Rakan is that if he has everything up, he is very, very slippery. His first level cooldowns are quite long though, so you can start threatening that. See that Croco walking towards bot side. Level 6 on it as well. Croco is in way out of position.
Needs to try and avoid the charm. Good flash over the wall. Tangoing's continue to move on forwards. Croco, does he have a Q up available? I don't know whether he had the Wolf's Frenzy working the minute. Just ults over. Cool gonna die here likely. No way! They get something back onto the Vi. And Tanguin has to back away. It's a 1-for-1 in the bot side. As a fair amount is burned to make these plays happen.
Yeah, that was a slick Q return from Tanguin. Just says, okay, alright, I'll throw out my Q. I don't need to waste my extra ult charge. One of the things you'll see about some Ahri players, even in pro play, because it feels like they've picked up the champion quite recently sometimes too, or they haven't been practicing as much. Sometimes they just throw their ult charge out because they want to get the damage down. You got to use it to get that Q return. Tanguin, great roam timing, gets ahead of Shanks, and of course has the Dark Seal. He wants to get kill participation. Doesn't need bullets to get to this play. Gets in just right on top of Croco, who doesn't have the level 6. And watch what happens here. So he doesn't ult into the brush, potentially losing vision and not getting the ults here. Uses the ult to get that Q return. And even though Kyle goes for a flash to try and get the... I think he tries to flash to get the heal immediately proc from the Q. It's not enough. So Tanguin walks away with 2 Dark Seal stacks, has himself the... Amp Tome as well. He'll have great wave clear now as well, even though he has... I don't think he went for the DMATs.
Yeah, I don't think he did. And as you can see, Draven and Gnar players shaking hands with Ahri players, good Q and R returns. You know how it is.
Sivir as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Echo,
all those people, exactly. You know, we all understand.
There's a really fun echo tech you can do where you can kind of jump forward with your Q. Well, you can jump to the side and do like a big combo, and then you can ult back and then pull the
Q the other side.
Pull the Q in different ways. It's really
fun. Yeah.
I kind of miss Echo being around just a little bit. I think that Echo was a very frustrating champion when he could just ult all the time, but it's a very very fun mobile AP assassin that does have real risk of getting shut down. Tank Echo I never want to see again.
Oh,
but Burst Echo I do quite like.
Season 6, Sunfire, Iceborne, Echo. I know Duke has a skin for it in SKT when he was in the SKT livery, but that champion was the most obnoxious thing of all time. When you were seeing Echo and Fizz running tank builds, you had to be a little...
By the way, we missed a trick back then, because the Blade of the Ruined King Triforce Fizz build was never called the Swordfish. That would have been...
What were we doing?
What were we doing back then, folks? We as a community should strive to give champions better names when they have really funny builds. Either way, back into the here and now. God, that was like... That's almost 10 years ago. How wild is that thing off? That was season 5. Because I remember Marin playing that on SKT back then.
I mean, if he did he have anything he built with the Caulfields in there? Because it could have been like
Sam, Caulfields didn't exist.
I know.
Sure.
But imagine if it could have been, because you could have a Caulfields Hammerhead Shark as a part way up.
Ah, that's very clever.
See
that Harry also as well. Breathe has often been a really big point of concern. Well, pressure for RNG. Harry is way too deep now.
Yeah, he is. The chomp goes wide and he gets to run away. Blazing Stampede and Iron Mantle's pretty good. Tanky just needs another ult charge. The start of the heal! Just so fast! The chomp goes wide and Harry runs away! What is a fox girl versus a very fast man with a turtle shell on his back?
Oh my god, Harry just gives 0.
Oh, he's learned everything. There's nowhere to go. He goes over the wall, and he will finally get up. That's a flash blown as well as a result of this.
Oh, so Tanyuan wastes his ult, wastes his flash. Feels like Croco might have gone too far now, though. Wei does have ult, and he has Shanks behind him, so no, he is completely safe. Croco gets a mark off of that as well. It's a topside series of players which felt it should have gone the way of RNG, particularly with Tanyuan. In a really good position to snowball with his next ults of the game. Bit of a swing and a miss there from the top side of RNG.
Doesn't go the way they're wanting in the slightest. Might as well Croco going towards the early Dirk. Why don't we build that into something like the Collector, which Kindred do love? So obviously it works very, very well with your Mounting Dread, your E, to really double down on the execute damage you get. Or elsewise, we'll wait and see.
So the thing is, because you have overwhelmingly magic damage on your team, it matters even more at that point. It gives you a really good individual point of power. It's not quite like the Kraken Slayer in terms of brute force DPS, but it can very much help you kind of finish off a lot of targets and get yourself on the board. So RNG, they still don't have the Ori ultimate. That would be a very important cooldown to wait for if they can. I don't think AL going to give them the chance though. Shanks is really chunking out damage mantras on the other side.
You're way down about half HP. There is a lot of ultimates to work with on both sides. Taken by Croco. Did come down to a Smite Vice, but of course Mounting Dread is a very useful ability to get secures. In goes Wei. Goes down regardless. We said he would have to trade his life to go on in, but it's a wonderful Lamb's Respite to keep anyone's legend up and about. They get another kill onto Ming. The Alistair gets no value, and they just come away with the kills, and the Dragon Hope can keep running. Remember last game, he's doing it all over again. LWX once again with no mana. The Burst Fire not quite in range to get anything more, and the Ghost popped.
Yeah, LWX survives by popping the Ghost, but RNG, it's another ill-fated fight. AL, they turn up to the ejectors and they just win. Breathe is now just trying to, once again, hold his own in the top side. This feels like the third Dominus we've had in top side to no avail. Breathe has not been impacting these fights himself. I feel like RNG, they've needed Breathe to be such an impactful player. The fact that the game is not about him is really quite poor for this team and how they played so far.
Not great news. They try to go to mid lane. Shanks just speeds himself and Wei goes wide. Now Kyle can think about potentially going for something more, but it would be a 2v3. Just don't do it. They'll get some chunks instead and back away.
I mean, if Shanks has already used his Q, your damage is
non-existent. It's a W or bust.
It's like Kyle could go forwards. I mean, he could if he presses the button, but anyone with a brain behind the keyboard should probably be backing off at that point. But either way.
But violence.
Yes, that is something which I do support. And you know what, Sam? I appreciate that you bring that up. No, sometimes we need a little bit. Sometimes we need a little bit of that in life. But see, anyone's legend feels like now with 3 kills, 6 Dark Seal stacks on Shanks as well. They have such a powerful mid laner who's about to get his 1-item spike as well. I'd imagine he's going to get the Malignance on the next back with all of the kills in hand. This isn't even AL's point of power. You know, this is the scary thing for RNG. You should be winning around these ultimates. Ming pops his ultimate very quickly just to try and shrug off some damage. Doesn't get a clean combo in the back of the pit. Doesn't combo up with Engage particularly well. And, you know, this is a good triple headbutt, but where's the follow-up? Because actually Vi's already dead, Ari's just used most of their abilities, and then by the time that the Lamb's Respite is elapsed, you haven't got your second round of your Pulverize. If you had that and you could Pulverize as it ended, that might have been an okay play, but RNG, they misplay the Engage. Again, it's once again on execution.
2 kill marks, 3 general jungle camp marks, and Croco at 5. Total here at 13 minutes feels excellent, really. Your break point, as I know. Shout out to Zyrene back in the day. He would always call it out at 18 minutes, 4 marks being the general gold standard for a Kindred in pro play, because that's when you get that range increase. Kindred getting that nice and early feels real good.
You know, the most marks I've ever seen in a professional game was a Japanese player.
Oh, yes.
Or a Japanese game. It was Hoglet who was playing there. And he had, I believe it was 10 marks in 16 minutes.
It was rapid. I remember casting that one.
Yeah, that was in 2021, LGL. Breathe has ult, has flash. You might be okay here. You can see that again. The roaming gank squad of RNG head towards the top side of the map.
The Croco, no Lamp Spike for a little bit, and that's just a face check. Goodbye, Udyr. Nicely played by RNG to get something.
And also, a big thing about when you've got Dark Steel champions in your team, give them the kill, not the assist, if you can. More gold over to Tanyuan, and with RNG falling behind at the curve of the game, that is very important. He has himself the one-item spikes. Tanyuan's second ultimate will be up fairly quickly. The problem is, while they're getting that kill, they end up losing the objective. So Herald potentially breaking open mid lane turret. With that Herald push, there's a chance that Croco can go into the enemy jungle as well. I don't think he's going to get the next mark, which is on the blue buff. I think Wei is already going to clear that one straight out. But AL, once again, they feel like they are just winning the trades.
Worth noting as well that Breathe has not gone towards a tanky Renekton build. It's full-on Eclipse. We have seen that starting to pop around a little bit more in the top lane, trying to make sure he can assassinate some of those more vulnerable backline members like the Kindred or the Zerion, the Renekton.
Yeah. And particularly... Wait, hang on. We have a very different Kindred build coming out. I've not seen this one. Dirk into Eclipse coming out of Croco. Okay. Now, we've almost exclusively, between Meteor and Milky Way, our two biggest Kindred players in the LPL, we have seen the Kraken Slayer into the Collector. We haven't seen this build, which is very bursty. Does, however, give you that immediate turnaround shield, though, because I think both these teams realize if the Kindred dies before pressing ult, this game is very winnable for RNG. So let's have the shield from the Eclipse to make sure that it's harder to one-shot the Kindred. But on the other side, Eclipse from Kindred, you have the Dark Steel stack from Tanyuan trying to burn down this Kindred in the duration of the CC before they can press their ult.
Feels to be the plan, and it is really good duelist. And when you have got a lot of people who are going to be flying at your face, the ability to have a little bit more dueling power does make sense, especially considering the crack state. It's good uptime DPS, but it's a little less
Here comes the
safe.
squad.
This is the squad. Another kill goes over. RNG looking much more coordinated this time. The problem is it's not coming for free because the Heralds drop mid. They will get a tower in trade for this, but into the mid lane they go. This might well be 2 towers for the one trade. It's Lord of the Rings second movie all over again.
I say maybe it would be more fitting if we had the Battle of Fangorn Forest as well, with like Ivern and Maokai flying around, but we'll have to settle with just the structures there to their namesake. So RNG, it's better proactivity than last game. That being said, last game was not great. So really, you know, what are we doing in terms of that comparison? Dragon is up either all the same. So RNG going to claim that one. The gold is within 1,000 or within 2,000 rather. It's not completely out of there. Croco's going to get himself up to 6 marks at 16. Croco is so far ahead of the curve. If he gets to 7 marks for the second range increase, I'm really worried for RNG, because when you have the Alistar and the Renekton, it means at that point they're really struggling to, get the slice and dice or something like that big combo from the Alistar. You can see that the burst build from Breathe and Tanyuan with the Darksteel as well, it really just helps him. Even the Black Cleaver coming in from Wei. It is high damage champions on the top side of the map.
But yes, it is. And one of the big things as well is Kindred initially is quite short range. Actually, you have to really hop forward to a lot of your DPS, which is fine when it's early on. And you're looking to close in with people, particularly when you're ganking with red buffs. Kindred, one of the more oppressive early junglers, actually, in a lot of ways. But as the game goes on, it becomes harder and harder to do that, particularly in team fights, where you do that, you just die, especially when you need your Q for the ability to offer dodge skill shots. So getting those range increases to be able to play out fights from a much more safe range feels really good.
At first rank, your 500 range, your short range, Kyle is right in the middle of things now.
Can maybe try and save his life. That's a big knock-up. Croco gets the Lamb's Spike down, but he's even going to be able to get out of here. I think he's just dead.
I think he's dead. He's completely caught in the middle of things. It's another death. Croco, despite having those marks, is just caught in the middle of things. You need sometimes a bit of that range to not get caught in the thick of it.
It does indeed, and that felt like he came over to try and save his bot laner in particular, and it just doesn't happen. Kyle gets caught, and everyone else comes over a little too late, and RNG actually are making the proactive plays work this time around. The counter engages just aren't hitting as hard as he did last game.
Yeah. And I have to say now, you're at 6 marks on the Dark Seal for this Ahri. I think we should really be seeing a Magi's. I think that in this game, when the game is not about bursting the Ahri out, and it's not a creative answer onto the Ahri either, it's very hard for Ahri to die in this game unless you've over-pushed things yourself. I think at this point, RNG need to realize everyone is going full burst. Let's see if we can get that first pick. I think the Magi's needs to come through soon from Tanguyen. Start trying to snowball this game.
See whether they decide to go towards the Fiendish Codex in inventory, which...
It's going to be... And look, I'm telling you now, it's Horizon Focus. It should be a Magi's.
Yeah, fair enough.
Look, folks, just for the sake of time, I'm going to mention it once all every game, and we don't have to go into the full explanation each time. It just helps, and particularly in this game. This is why builds like this matter. When we talk about this Renekton build, when we talk about the Eclipse on the Kindred as well, this is why we mention it, because in games which are very much about the couple of hundred HP, it will be the difference between Kindred living or dying and being able to press the ult before they end up getting completely burst out. This can change.
Oh, Shanks has gone too deep. Anyone's Legend beginning to get picked off. The turnaround damage at this time beginning to fly a little bit harder as Breathe taken down about 20% HP, but is not critically taken down. And Shanks just finds himself by a Raptor Pit by himself and dies.
Ah, man, that's a big shutdown to give. He loses his Dark Seal stacks himself, which we said, hey, that's nice to get on him. He's at the 2-item mark. Shanks has been such a stalwart carry for anyone's Legend, but as you can see, both these mid laners trying to take this game by the horns, really. Trying to direct it where it's going to go. He's trying to get some vision control, walks straight into Renekton.
Oh, no.
And yeah, he just ends up getting blown up. It is the Eclipse build coming in from the Renekton, and while this build is very, very squishy, this is what happens when a squishy walks into you.
And your shields mean nothing to Renekton. He presses W and they're all gone, so suddenly you don't even get that tankiness, and then the burst comes through from an Eclipse build. It's not a pleasant time to be a Karma in a 1v1.
That's a very good point, actually. I had forgotten about that shield break. Very important in this game.
Oh, yeah.
It can even apply to some of Rakan's shielding as well.
And Kindred's Eclipse, yeah. It's all kind of there. So
all of this ends up mattering just a little bit more when you end up putting everything onto the table that way. So what this means is that RNG now are within 1,000 gold. I misspoke a little bit earlier when it's just a little over 1,000, but it's getting closer. It's important. We can track that one because anyone's Legend, despite the fact that they are the team which wins easier in 5v5s, it feels like when they're clumped up, that's where their carries really start to shine. RNG, they've done well on the top side, and lest we forget the Smolder in the bot side as well. 2 items on this. The game has not been about the Smolder so far. It's actually been about the Snowball top side of RNG. That won't be the way forever.
Exactly. What it's doing is buying time, paving the bridge over the river for LWX to walk over once he hits those 225 stacks. He's 188, the last I saw about 10 seconds ago. So I think he'll probably have a little bit more once he starts clearing out this mid lane wave. Will not be at that break point for this next dragon fight, but the point being is they already took away the soul points. It's not even like you can threaten soul right now as anyone's Legend ahead of the stacks coming on through, so this feels like a much more stable game for the Smolder to come online.
Weirdly as well, in a game like this, so it's a Cloud Rift. Weirdly in a game like this, when everyone is so squishy and we're talking about, okay, well, you know, Crocker, right now he's sat at, I think, at about 575 range, which is pretty okay for that first upgrade. That move speed can help you disengage. Baron has been started off of Vision by anyone's Legend, RNG. They have an Alistar ult to face check, and they have a blue trinket there as well. How quickly can they get in position to contest?
This was the attempted burn. They're going to make it happen. They've got the double AD carries down to 4,000 HP. They've still got a way to work when you can get to the backside. The turnaround is huge. Ming flash forward to the double pulverize. Gets a huge jump on a Clocko, who still needs to think about ulting. Does not do so yet. They managed to kill off Ming. That's a pretty good start. Quinn to the backline goes Breathe. It's a well-timed Lamb's respite to buy space, and everyone is so bloody low. Good knockback. Shanks on the other side throwing up massive amounts of damage, but LWX is untouched. Gets 2 at the back of it all, and they will burn off the back of the Baron. 2 dead for that attempted start.
Croco is too low as well. RNG, instead of going towards the Baron itself, it looks like they say, okay, right, let's go towards Dragon. We can get that one and stop AL getting soul point, and it's not like AL can rush Baron in return. In fact, they're starting to reset all over. It's a bit of a fumble from RNG. I feel like they could have claimed one of these objectives. I think what their thought was, we can't kill the Baron quick enough, and then reset to defend the other side of the map on the Dragon. The Dragon would go down quicker. Going back into the replay to see how this happened then. Ming, huge combo again. Ming is one of these players who has been in the LPL for a very long time. He struggled this split, but moments like that show you that he can kind of start off those fights still in the right kind of timing on these melee supports. Big fight for them, picture in picture. You can see that RNG did reset and go towards the Dragon after this fight.
Again, some solid Lamb Sprite. The problem is the Lamb Sprite only stops you dying. It doesn't really keep your HP bars that high. And they do get burned down pretty heavily within it and have to pull away again. Down to back towards the Baron we go. Second Dragon to RNG. Smolder surely now at that break point of stacks. Oh, I think RNG have probably crested the horizon required to be in the ascendancy in this game. The last few minutes have felt like they're the ones getting more gold, more picks, more power. Well, anyone's legend now into play from behind from a more tricky position than they were at the start of this game.
See that's Tanyan doing some big damage here as well. It's a Smolder going over the top of it. It's going to have the Locket Shield brought out from Kyle to bring things back into a bit of parity. LWX, you can see that. It's 24 minutes. He's been on a pretty good stacking timing. He has the execute up and available. One of the big things here, of course, is that the Kindred ult can stop you from being immediately executed. But as soon as you come out of it, if the burn is on, you immediately pop. As long as you end up getting brought down below that HP margin.
Breathe was briefly being looked at by anyone's legend, but to little avail. And how much better has this game looked from RNG? It's not been perfect by any means, but at least the likes of Breathe, Wei, Tangyuan, looking like they're on the same page. They're not flubbing ultimates is the big one as well. First, actually their plays are landing the way they just weren't in the last game where people were all miscoordinated. A much better look from RNG.
So there was just one Q landing onto Wei at the top of the screen there, which reminds you, actually, it'll still have a lot of damage. Now you can see that because RNG have just backed off. They've lost vision as well. There's a Kindred on this, and there's a Karma to keep them shielded up. RNG can't really afford to let his Baron go off of vision. It's not going down quick enough for there to be no contest, but the fight starts again.
You know what, the fight, Tangyuan's not here. Maybe forced to teleport, and that might be all they're after. We'll take the summoner advantage and pull away. Ari no longer with that ability to play the globe.
Breathe has his teleport up fairly soon. You can see that again, AL. If they hit one of these Mantra Qs, it is a lot of damage. Good damage coming through the choke point from LWX. He's trying to just get a bit of a HP advantage as it comes through. It feels like it's going to be a bit of a push and pull. I don't think either of these teams want to be stuck on the objective for too long. Feels like they really want to be looking for the fight instead. Look for that burst.
Teleport back towards the mid lane. RNG do interrupt the back on Kyle. Over the wall comes Croco. Has lost a fair amount of his HP bar. So needs to be just a little bit wary. Second item was in fact the Kraken Slayer as well. So has defaulted away from what looked like a full lethality build towards something a little bit more traditional. I wonder what that then makes this a collect a third item. The problem is, because you've fallen behind the pace of the game a little bit, collector gets slightly less valuable.
It's, yeah, the Dirk is good value. The question is really what you're going to build that into next, and can you hold on to it in your inventory, or if you feel like you have to upgrade it. Reminder, folks, taking a step back at the wider picture of this game, if RNG beat anyone's legend, it means that top esports lock playoffs. If anyone's legend, if they win, they keep their hopes alive. Well, I mean, they're likely going to be in playoffs with a 7-win score. Well, no. Okay, I'm not going to say
it happen.
Yeah, so if they get themselves this win, it feels like they are on their way to playoffs. 8 wins is a very good margin, given how many teams are likely going to be looking at playoffs at a 7-win margin. 8 is going to be much more safe for you. RNG, they would have to win every remaining scenario, game for them, but with such a poor game disadvantage, I feel very, very hard to do so. They already lost 1 game in this one too. RNG, if they lose this series, I think they are actually guaranteed out of playoffs if they lose series, or it's close enough to it. It's going to be very unlikely for them to make it.
Wei about to get jumped on here, of course, with the Vault Breaker. Has ways to get out, but the charm after being Wei flashing, trying to get over the wall, doesn't make it happen. Gets a cease and desist to no avail. Jungler down. Now they can start at the Baron with the man advantage. Smolder, though, begins to roar to life. Kyle's health bar deleted down to about 10%, courtesy of LWX's combo.
Ming needs to get a flash combo, and there needs to be a hell of a fight afterwards. They're not going to get the Baron. They need the fights.
Okay, Ming gets him, but it's not onto the most valuable target as Croco stays alive for now. The charm afterwards, though, is a phenomenal follow-up. Still not enough to stop the Lambda Spike coming on through. Keeps the health bars a little higher. Shanks dies. Tangyuan low, though, and Harry comes back on over to the other side. And LWX still trying to free fire, but he's so low. Hope hops over the wall and gets scorched down. Flash on forward. Cannot quite get everybody. LWX, it was close, but he cannot make it stick.
And midway through that, Hope also snipes out Tanyan as well with an Ultra Shock laser through the wall. So even RNG's mid laner falls for that attempt. RNG, they lose their jungler in a key point of the game. They lose a fight. They lose the Baron as well. And anyone's legend roar into life in the late game. Wei caught out trying to get some vision. It has been a bit of a sparring match, just trying to get some extra value out of these vision wards. Wei can't get himself away from danger at this point. As the fight goes on, you're definitely feeling the lack of the Rakan in terms of disruption. It means that the carries have Tenuan and LWX can't get the maximum value. This is a big thing, though. We've talked a lot about Ahri builds. If he has a higher damage Ahri build, he kills Croco here. It gets very close in terms of killing him. But he goes down, he ends up staying up, keeping himself in the fight to pop that ultimate. And after this, through the wall, just about catches him to see him to the death chamber.
Does indeed. And LWX, he sees so many low health bars. You understand why he's trying to play someone aggressive. He can't. A single auto there kills Kyle, and the healing might be enough to keep things in. Look at the damage from Smolder. 8k by himself.
WX, he's had a rough split himself, but this Smolder is something that he's really trying to do his best on. The fight comes again.
That's not a bad engage. Kyle just about getting away, but Croco is down. The turnaround damage is pretty good, but they need to keep firing. LWX untouched.
Breathe!
There could be some scary options. Breathe! Into the backside with a monstrous Culver Week. Does everything he can to break this Baron shove. Anyone's Legend losing both of their AD carries, and they're caught by the enemy Wolfpick. Tango can go over the wall, throw down another charm, won't quite catch Shanks, but will still do enough to get another kill to LWX.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have reached the late game. If this is your stop, please alight from the train here. AL, RNG, they are more than willing to stand their feet on this battleground and see just how much damage they can bring to bear. Last fight, it was Wade not being able to contribute to the fight. And this one, it's AL fighting before they had the Kindred ult. It's going to allow RNG to deny this Baron buff. After AL fought so hard for it, they're going to get themselves an extension on this game, getting even more stacks onto LWX, who is 6-1-3 and starting to rule the late game.
At this point, Smolder is more than capable of winning you the game, even in that last fight where they were in a 4v5 and his ultimate only hits the support. They nearly won it. Have a look at this one. They look for a bit of a pick and Kyle misses, and then the turnaround is so huge.
I mean, the other thing here is, Croco, you can see that he's not CC'd, He could have cast an ultimate if he had it available. They pick a fight before that Lambs or Spider's up. I don't think you can ever afford to do that as anyone's Legend. It buys so much time away from the burst combo of RNG, and they don't have that Kindred ultimate to save them this time.
No, they do not. And then Kyle and Shanks cannot find a way out of the scenario. RNG come hunting for some more. The Karma dies as LWX throws down another Super Scorcher Breath.
See that Tenuan's built up to a Banshee's Veil, so they can jump in with a bit more impunity. Again, I really wish it was just a bit higher damage, something like that. Lichbane, or the, particularly with the amount of kill participation they've got, that Medjai's would have absolutely popped off at this point. But not to be. Tenuan, he's been a player under British scrutiny recently because, of course, XEZ is waiting in the back room. They've called him up to the main roster. He's not playing right now, and of course, he does not see him on the Rift, but there's every chance that Tenuan's starting spot in the roster is under question. Croco's going to go into the enemy side. He has 9 marks, by the way.
Yeah,
God damn, this Kindred. If they survive into the fight, we talk about the Smolder and the Kindred, and the Smolder and the Zeri. Kindred also a massively scaling champion.
Yeah, exactly. Another 2 marks, and you got that third range increase. I think it's 4, 7, and then 11. It's every 4 after the edit, so it's no, it's every 3.
So it's the first 4, which gives you the 75 range increase, and then it's every 3 after that. So it's 4, then 7, 10, 13. Technically, if you get to 25, you can get an extra 250 bonus range, and then match Caitlyn at that point. It's also worth noting that every stack as well, besides those breakpoints, gives you extra execute damage on your E, extra % HP damage on your W, and then also extra attack speed on your Dance of Arrows as well on the Q.
It is worth noting, though, that your E execute increase is conditional on how much crit you have. So the more crit you have, the bigger the increase is. So obviously crit builds, when you get loads of stacks, means your execute goes to absolutely obscene levels.
And you can see that's why Kraken Slayer, the Collector, looks like maybe a rapid fire cannon coming in for Croco, going in towards level 16. We have not just 2 late game scaling AD carries. Because of the amount of stacks, we have 3 late game scaling carries of the marksman type. Croco, look at the damage he's doing just with 1 auto onto way there as well. It's worth noting that will be very nasty. That's through a Frozen Heart, by the way, and there's no Lord Dominic's regards here.
Part of that as well is, remember the W on Kindred, the marks that you get is scale up the % HP damage of your W, so it just means, like, actually because you've built up a lot of these kind of, like, HP stackers in the likes of the Kindred and stuff, but you do not the Kindred, the Renekton and stuff, you do a lot of value with that.
Minute until Dragon, minute till Baron. This is where the game might come to finally the conclusion. See if we're going to continue this series to a game 3, or it will be ended out here in pain for RNG with a 2-0. It would be Soul for anyone's Legend, and as you said, because it's a very squishy game, the extra movement speed means that those squishies can avoid that killing damage with the extra Soul on top of it. RNG would not want to give that one up, especially to Anudia as well. That champion is absolutely disgusting with the Cloud Soul. Now we go towards the Baron potentially as well. One more of these might finally break the base.
Just trying to find a little spot there to be battle warding somewhat. The problem they've got to be a bit afraid of as well is there's a few wards behind them now from anyone's Legends. So if someone wants to go for a flank TP, it's very available. Breed's last one did a lot of work in their blue side jungle. So do keep your eye on the one by the blue buff in particular. It's just been pinged out actually. They kind of have an idea that it's there.
See that LWX with that rapid fire cannon. Starting to get some good Q up time. That is dangerous. That's Smolder. Hasn't been the story of this game so far, but that's a 3Q splash again. Hits a W onto Hope too. He's down to 2/3 HP. LWX, the game has sometimes been rearing its head towards that Smolder and saying, okay, this champion's online. Once again, Harry dodges back and splashes the Q onto his teammates. He needs to be careful, actually. The frontline spacing in these fights is so important. Here comes the
Shanks
ult.
goes gold. That means an ultimate onto the backside onto Croco. Still trying to play this one out very low indeed. They get a kill onto Shanks. They continue to hop on backwards. The Lamb's fight is solid, but it's still very low health bars. Mink can start to go forwards afterwards. They get a kill onto Kyle. And the mid and support are just down for anyone's Legend. RNG continue to try and hunt. LWX still untouched. The double scaling AD carries just cannot stand and deliver.
Well, they don't have one of them. You've got Croco on the other side of the map. Hope is left alone. He is gone towards the death chamber.
And the auto afterwards with a little bit of empowerment secures the kill. And RNG, I think, have just done enough.
I think they just about won out this late game fight. They're going to deny the soul. They can't push into the base, though. So AL will have themselves at least one last fight. In this one, you can see that Croco walks forward, kills San Ming as well. That cow went a little too far from his pastures. Croco just about keeping things interesting in the late game.
So that actually might help out here a little bit. It means you can have an even fight by this Baron because the death of Ming and you've got a teleport from Shanks. You can still play this one out. Renekton spotted in the bush. Breathe begins to pull away with the rest of his team. Croco so low though. My God, he just deletes the Kindred. Even with the flash, he flashes forward to follow. Breathe still alive. All of your damage is gone because the Kindred fell. And LWX once again roars to a couple more kills. This dragon, well and truly awake, and Kyle's going to try and break the wave, but he's a Rakan. What damage does he have? He can just delay it.
He's just trying to buy some extra time for Hope to get wave clears, even though each of these fights is so high in damage, so high in burst. The game goes on. RNG get themselves the last dragon. They get themselves the Baron as well. There's a teleport coming into the map to make sure that there's no cheeky steal coming in from AL or any kind of attempt. Tanyuan going to shuffle this wave into tower.
Oh, Croco, you just saw it. They knew the Renekton was there, but he slices through Harry, then flash W's onto Kindred. There's just nowhere to go. And the Baron secured. Back away. We look as this map increasingly dire for anyone's Legend. 3 dragons to RNG, a Baron, 11 kills on a Smolder, who is at 447 stacks.
That is truly absurd, because remember the burn is max HP scaling as well, and is true damage, because it's that 3rd upgrade on the Q. So, yeah, good luck, anyone's Legend. You have to find a way to kill this Smolder now. You can't play around that front line. I don't think you can play for backline, kind of DPS between the Kindred and the Zeri. 1 hyperscaling carry is the weight of 2 in the hyper late game.
Finally, a Bloodthirster completed from Hope, but because of the build from the likes of Croco, there's no Lord Dominic's here, which is often a really key item. As the game's gone, there's so many people with a solid amount of HP, the Vi, the Alistair, the Renekton, and you're not really getting the opportunity to just jump on a backline here, and at this point, you don't win the DPS arms check. So your ability to do work here at the Kindred in some ways, a little bit muted by the slightly awkward build. The Eclipse made sense, but it has stalled out something like a Lord Doms.
Yeah, and Horse doesn't even have the extra HP now from something like a Triforce. Also helps with the movement speed.
Yeah.
The thing I really want to credit Wei as well, alongside Ming in terms of the engaged duo. They're the ones with the most deaths on the team. Of course they are going to be in this game. Ming had an awful game 1, and Wei didn't have one that was much better. Feels like in this time, though, they've managed to find the crucial moments to engage and force AL onto the defensive in a way that they can't close out the team fight. So, as the next stage of this game comes through, look at those wards. Every so often, I ask you to check down on the minimap. Oh, look now, it's very red. RNG have a lot of wards into the enemy jungle, and there are no AL wards beyond the river. You know, working with very little information here.
About to lose half of their ward line anyway. They have to move it back towards this initial bush going into the jungle. That's how little they have to work with. So we're pointing out LWX was level 18 to Hope's level 16. Hope at least pops over to level 17. There's a better way of phrasing that, I'm sure. Ticks over. There we go. That's the one that's normally used. And on to, instead, the inhibitor towers we look. Damage immediately thrown down. It's just so difficult to manage. Harry at this point as well on the Udyr, not really having as much to say in these solo lanes.
AL have a slight benefit in the fact that they do actually have pretty good wave clear and very good range now. Croco can even add into that equation. It's not going to be enough to save the base. You can see that with his last wave. God damn, the Q damage. It's absolutely insane. And that comes the Smolder ult as well, really threatening the execute at this point. LWX flexing the muscles.
Locket popped immediately to try and mitigate some of the initial damage, but still forces Croco back to base, still gets them the inhibitor and RNG. They play this out slow and steady, and it feels like this is their game to lose.
However, AL do manage to break that siege and wait out the Baron buff. It ends now. They can finally get a wave pushed across the other side of the map. Can there possibly be a fight when maybe LWX is out of position and AL can get themselves an opportunistic pick? It feels difficult because you have, you know, a lot of mobility. The Ahri and the Renekton, they can dash out of danger a lot of the time. Of course, Smolder can join the fight with Flash, Ghost, and then the flap over the walls as well. It's so difficult. If I was AL in this position, you know, you don't have great information. You're trying to find someone out of position to finally get yourself into a good fight. But even Harry as the front line has to position so differently because if, as we saw in the mid lane before, if you splash the Smolder Q onto the back line, that is a huge amount of damage you can't afford to take. Breather's on vision on the flank. We start to set up our battle lines.
Backline from anyone's legend really struggling to stay safe in these recent fights, really struggling to get DPS uptime. This would be solved for RNG, and anyone's legend are here to contest. Harry gets into the pit. Kyle on a flank. He is the Rakan. If he can slow down LWX in particular, the value is huge, but an immediate Q. That's a third of Croco's health bar.
And they end up giving up the soul. RNG, now do they look for the fight? Here comes LWX.
Tries to get into the backside, does. Shanks not getting that much value. The small roll comes flying on over. Way onto Croco, gets the cease and desist. Throwing damage onto Croco, who's trading up pretty well here. Throws down his own Lance Respite, but LWX on the other side, just marauding. Flying over the countryside, looking for kills and sacrifices. They all look like livestock to him. Dragons and cattle. What a match made in heaven. What a win for RNG, who brings Small to the table a second time, and it looks oh so different to game one.
RNG, they flipped the script from game one. They tried to use the Smolder in game one, and it did not succeed. Game two, a million stacks, it feels like, carry them over the finish line and bring us to game three in Shanghai.
Legend back to the drawing board a little bit there. They mess up the mid game. They don't snowball cleanly this time around. They never really managed more than a 1,000 or 2,000 gold leads, and suddenly the fact the picks started working from the top side of the map, the fact that Smolder hit their breakpoints kind of unimpeded, meant that RNG get to play a much cleaner